The night I died, Evan was standing in a hotel room, in nothing but a robe, kissing Sophie, the woman he had always called just an old friend. Welcome to revenge cookies. Imagine dying in the freezing rain, only to wake up 3 days earlier and catch your devoted boyfriend slipping your life's work and his loyalty into his female best friend's pocket. Pour yourself a drink, darling. It's time for a little demolition. Rain ran off my lashes, turning the headlights across the street into a white blur. I lay on the cold, wet pavement with the sound of tires cutting through puddles in my ears. On the 4th floor, the curtains were still open. Evan had one hand around Sophie's waist. Her blonde hair rested against his shoulder as she tilted her face up to him. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. Then I jerked upright so hard I knocked a glass of water off the coffee table. It rolled to the edge of the rug, spilling water across an architecture magazine. Evan looked up from the couch, phone still in his hand. Rachel? I stared at him. Gray hoodie, half-shaved stubble, the faint scar over his right eyebrow. 3 days before my death. This was exactly how he had looked sitting in our apartment, texting Sophie while reminding me to book the hotel. He got up and reached for my forehead. I recoiled so fast my knee hit the coffee table. His hand froze in midair. What's wrong? I bent to pick up the glass. My fingers missed it the first time. On the second try, I managed to grip the cold glass and set it back on the table. The digital calendar on the wall read Tuesday, October the 12th. The final judging for the National Emerging Design Challenge was October the 15th. I had died on the night of October the 14th. Evan sighed behind me and sat back down. Have you been working yourself too hard? I know the competition matters, but you don't have to run yourself into the ground. He pushed my usual black coffee across the table. Drink something. Your hands shake when you skip breakfast. My fingers rested on the lid for 2 seconds. After 4 years together, he remembered that I got lightheaded when I didn't eat. He remembered that I hated people touching the tool tray on the left side of my drafting table. He remembered to keep a light blanket in the car every winter. He also remembered exactly how to lie to me. His phone buzzed. Evan glanced down. His expression barely changed, but his thumb opened the message instantly. Oh, right, he said. You haven't booked the hotel yet, have you? Sophie wants to stay on the same floor as us. Connecting rooms would be best. She doesn't sleep well in unfamiliar places, and you know she gets anxious. I watched a thin curl of steam rise from my coffee. The first time around I had said yes. I used the last of the money I could freely spend to book an upscale hotel closest to the venue. Evan promised he would pay me back. Sophie hugged me and told me I was the most thoughtful person in the world. The night before the competition, a glass of red wine ended up all over my laptop. My backup drive disappeared from a locked briefcase. I tore through the suite looking for it, then finally pushed open the connecting door. The drive was on Sophie's nightstand. Evan was there too. I pulled myself out of the memory and opened my laptop. Not yet. Evan smiled. Perfect. Sophie just sent me a hotel link. She says the reviews are great. I opened it and checked the room types. No connecting rooms left. Already? There's a major competition this weekend. I turned the screen toward him. 1 large suite and a few standard rooms. That's it. He frowned. I slid the mouse toward him. If Sophie absolutely has to stay close to you, you book it. Use your card. That way we don't have to sort out reimbursements later. He blinked. Last time I had handled everything. I searched the flights. I booked the hotel. I confirmed the rental car. I printed competition materials for both of them. Evan had turned Rachel's the reliable one into a medal he could hang around my neck while handing me every inconvenience that came with it. Fine. He took the mouse. What about you? The competition's partner hotel still has rooms. I'll stay there. It's closer to the venue. His brow tightened immediately. I thought we were staying together. I need space to work on my model. You can work in the suite. I looked at him. Evan was the one who looked away first. Whatever. He rubbed the back of his neck. You're under a lot of pressure. 2 nights apart won't kill us. His phone rang again. This time, Sophie was calling. Evan went out to the balcony to answer. I couldn't hear what they were saying. I only saw him smile with his back to me, his shoulders visibly relaxing. I opened my design files. Main file, duplicated. Cloud backup, updated. Portable drive, encrypted. Print package, exported again. I scanned and uploaded every original sketch until the screen finally showed SYNCCOMPLETE. Then I logged into my account security page. There was a device I didn't recognize. Last accessed, 8 weeks ago. Downloaded, Flood Resilience Project, complete folder. My mouse stopped moving. 8 weeks ago, I hadn't even entered the national competition yet. At that point, only 3 people knew the project was developed enough to show anyone outside my program. Me, my faculty advisor, and Evan. The balcony door slid open. Evan walked in, picked up my coffee, and took a sip like he had 1,000 times before. Sophie says thank you. For what? For letting her come with us. I closed the device log. Tell her not to thank me yet. What? Nothing. The next day, I rolled my suitcase up to the gate and found Sophie already waiting. She wore an oversized cream sweater and opened her arms the second she saw me. Rachel. I stepped aside. Her hug landed on empty air. She hesitated, then recovered with a smile. You look exhausted. Evan said you've barely slept all week. He seems to know a lot. Evan came up behind us and automatically took Sophie's carry-on. Her shoulder's been bothering her, he explained. Sophie waved a hand at me. I can carry it. He insisted. In the security line, she looped an arm through mine and lowered her voice. Miles has been so busy he barely answers his phone. I really don't want to intrude on you guys this weekend. I looked down at her arm around mine. And? She had said almost the exact same thing last time. Back then, I had been the one reassuring her that friends didn't need to be so formal with each other. This time, I pulled out my ID and slipped my arm free in the process. Then spend more time with him when you get back. Sophie blinked. From the next line over, Evan leaned toward us. What are you two talking about? Miles, I said. Sophie's smile paused for half a second. When we boarded, I reached my row and found Sophie sitting in my seat. She had the window. Evan sat in the middle. 2 coffees were tucked into the seat pocket in front of them. They looked like they had already settled into the arrangement before I arrived. Sophie looked up, instantly apologetic. Oh my God, did I take your seat? I thought you liked the aisle. Passengers were stacking up behind me. Evan shifted slightly. It's only 2 hours. Why don't you take Sophie's seat? It's farther back, but it's an aisle too. I folded my boarding pass once. Sure. Sophie's face relaxed. I turned around and walked toward the back. A man I knew was sitting beside her assigned seat. Logan Pierce looked up, glanced at my face, then at the seat number in my hand, then over my shoulder toward the front. Collins, Pierce. Have we gotten so competitive that we're swapping seats to sabotage each other now? I shoved my bag under the seat and buckled in. You're giving yourself too much credit. Should I ask what happened? Not if you want this flight to feel short. Huff. Logan nodded and reopened his laptop. Fair enough. As the plane began to taxi, I switched my phone to airplane mode. Before the screen went dark, a notification lit up on Evan's phone in the row ahead. Sophie's name. I caught one line. She still doesn't know you already submitted it, right? Evan suddenly turned around as if he had felt me looking. I was already staring down, sliding my phone into the seat pocket. Sophie said something to him. He shook his head, then looked back one more time. Without looking up, Logan shifted his laptop half an inch in my direction, just enough to block Evan's view. You're in my space, I said. Sorry. He didn't move it back. The flight attendant asked everyone to put away electronic devices. Evan finally turned around. I reached into my bag and touched the portable drive. The metal casing was cold against my fingers. The first time around, all I had thought about on this flight was whether I could win. This time, the plane hadn't even left the ground, and I was no longer sure whether I was flying toward a competition or toward a theft that had started long before I ever noticed. The engines surged. I folded my boarding pass hard enough to leave a white crease down the middle. Once we were above the clouds, I replayed Sophie's message 3 times in my head. Submitted what? Evan had been applying to architecture firms for fall recruiting. He complained that his portfolio wasn't strong enough and had asked to use my modeling computer. I was buried in competition work at the time, so I gave him the password to my old machine. 8 weeks ago. Exactly when the unknown device first downloaded my project. I tightened my seatbelt another notch. Logan glanced sideways. If you pull that any tighter, they're going to have to carry you off the plane with the seat attached. I let go. Thanks for the warning. You're quieter than you were at regionals. You were more annoying at regionals. So, I'm improving. A short breath escaped me that was almost a laugh. Up front, Sophie was laughing too. Evan leaned toward her, listening. His arm rested on the divider between their seats. When the plane hit a small patch of turbulence, Sophie immediately grabbed his sleeve. He didn't pull away. I turned to the window. Logan closed his laptop. You bringing the flood-resilient housing project this year? I looked at him. How do you know about that? You showed an early model at last year's preview. Your drainage shaft was too deep. I told you the construction cost would be brutal. I changed it. I know. You know that too? Because someone put a very similar system in a job portfolio. My fingers went still on the seatbelt buckle. Logan kept his eyes forward. I saw it last month when I was helping a professor review student portfolios. The details were different, but the water flow logic was almost identical. Whose? He turned then. Evan Carter's. The cabin announcement came on at that exact moment, and the beverage cart started moving down the aisle. I didn't ask anything else. 2 hours later, we landed. As soon as Evan turned his phone back on, his hotel confirmation came through. He held the screen out to me with a note of satisfaction in his voice. Got the last premium suite. Sophie stood beside him. I can just get a standard room. You two shouldn't have to change your plans because of me. The standard rooms are sold out, Evan said. The front desk just confirmed it. They can add you to the suite. There's a couch in the living room anyway. Sophie looked at me. Rachel, you really don't mind? I extended the handle on my suitcase. Evan booked it. Ask him. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. Evan clearly didn't like that answer. Aren't we supposed to be a team? You're making it sound like I deliberately... I need to register at the venue. I cut him off. My car's here. The hotel entrance was crowded with competitors dragging model cases through the revolving doors. Wind blew Sophie's hair across her mouth. Evan reached over and brushed it away for her. She tipped her face up and smiled. At check-in, the desk clerk looked at the reservation. The suite is registered to 2 guests, Mr. Carter and Miss Parker. Is that correct? Evan visibly hesitated. Sophie answered first. Rachel isn't staying here. She moved to the competition's partner hotel so she could be closer to the venue. The clerk nodded and placed 2 key cards on the counter. Sophie reached for one, then pulled back as if the card were hot. Evan, you take them. He slipped both into his wallet. I stood 2 steps away and didn't correct a thing. Then Sophie's phone rang. Miles was video calling. Her expression changed instantly. She walked behind a column to answer, then came back less than 30 seconds later and caught my arm. Rachel, if Miles asks, can you tell him Evan and I have separate rooms? He's been really sensitive about everything with the wedding coming up. I looked at her. If you're worried he'll misunderstand, why don't you tell him the truth yourself? Her mouth tightened. Evan walked over. Don't put her on the spot. Miles can be kind of controlling. I raised my eyes to him. So the solution is to lie to him? His face hardened. That's not what I said. Good. Even then, my stomach still tightened when I looked at them. 4 years of habit didn't disappear just because I had died once. I handed my suitcase to the driver of the car I had booked. Evan followed me. Rachel, you're really not coming over tonight? No. At least have dinner with us. I'll see. He reached up to fix my scarf. I stepped back half a pace and adjusted it myself. His hand dropped. What is going on with you? I looked at him. Airport announcements echoed over the pickup lane, and the driver behind me was asking me to close the door. For 1 second, I wanted to ask everything. Did you take my design? Was Sophie's theft of my backup drive never spontaneous at all? Had you always planned to wait until I lost the competition, then turn my work into yours? Evan's phone rang before I could speak. He looked down. Sophie's looking for me. I closed the car door. By the time we pulled away, he was already running back toward the hotel. Harbor House was only 2 blocks from the competition venue. My room was small, but quiet. I put my laptop on the desk, locked my portable drive in the safe, and spread my printed drawings across the bed. At 7:40 de l'après-midi, Logan sent me a photo. It was the table of contents from the portfolio he had reviewed the month before. One page was titled URB ANFL OODADAPTIVEHOUSING. Author, Evan Carter. I called him immediately. Do you have photos of the actual project pages? No. The background around Logan was noisy. I only photographed the contents page because somebody had assembled the portfolio out of order. The professor asked me to keep track of it. Do you remember any details? A rotating drainage node. That was mine. 2 years earlier, the first version of my model had used a rotating mechanism. The material was too brittle, and the control jammed 6 separate times. I eventually redesigned the entire system. The final competition model didn't use that structure at all. Thank you. Rachel. Logan stopped me before I hung up. What? If this is connected to the competition, don't try to handle it alone. I tightened my grip on the phone but didn't answer. He didn't push. See you tomorrow. When the call ended, I pulled a document pouch from the bottom of the closet. I remembered packing my first round drafts. The zipper opened. Printouts. Contracts. Registration forms. Everything was there except my gray spiral notebook. I dumped the entire suitcase onto the bed. A charging cable hit the floor. A pen fell into one of my shoes. My spare earbuds bounced off the wall. No notebook. I knelt beside the bed and went through every sheet of paper again. Someone knocked. My head snapped up. Room service. I hadn't ordered anything. I went to the door but didn't open it. Who sent it? Mr. Evan Carter. A receipt slid under the door. 1 sandwich. 1 black coffee. There was a single note. She forgets to eat when she's scared. I stood with my hand on the doorknob for several seconds. Before every competition, Evan had forced me to eat. Once, when I worked on a model until 3 in the morning, he came back from a convenience store with soup that had gone cold and sat on the floor until I finished every bite. The server knocked again. Ma'am? Just leave it outside. The footsteps faded. I opened the door. The coffee was still steaming. I brought the tray inside and left it untouched on the corner of the desk. My phone lit up. Evan, stop being mad. We'll talk tomorrow night before the competition. Another message followed. Evan, Sophie's having a rough night. I'm going to have dinner with her first. I read both messages and turned off the screen. 10 minutes later, Sophie posted a photo from the hotel restaurant. Only the corner of the table showed, along with 2 wine glasses touching. Finally, breathing again, the caption said, She deleted it quickly. I already had a screenshot. Not because I planned to use it to humiliate anyone later. I had just realized that, the first time around, I had actually defended photos like this. When people privately asked whether it bothered me, I laughed and said Evan was only taking care of a friend. I saved the screenshot in a new folder. The folder name was simply the date. At 9:15, I logged back into the cloud security records. The unknown device hadn't only downloaded my project. That same day, 8 weeks earlier, it had opened a folder I had almost forgotten existed. EARLYDRAFTS. It contained scanned copies of every page from the missing gray spiral notebook. At the bottom of the activity log was one more action. EXPORTCOMPLETED. I reached for my phone to call my advisor. Before I could, a message from Sophie appeared. Rachel, sorry to bother you this late. Can you please not tell Miles that Evan and I are staying in the same suite? Another message came immediately. He'll get the wrong idea. I stared at that sentence for a long time. Then I typed one word. Okay. Sophie sent a heart almost instantly. I set the phone face down, picked up the coffee Evan had sent, and took one sip. It was cold now, and bitter enough to stay on my tongue. The next morning was setup day. Logan's booth was diagonally across from mine. His model used nothing but black and white materials, as clean and blunt as the way he talked. He watched me arrive with 3 printed backup sets and 2 separate drives, and raised an eyebrow. Are you entering a competition, or preparing for the collapse of civilization? Ask me again after the weekend. Good. I'll buy canned food. I set my model on the table. Buy glue first. The panel on your left is lifting. Logan looked down. His expression darkened by exactly half a shade. I turned toward registration with the corner of my mouth lifting. Around noon, Evan came to find me. He had changed into a button-down, and his hair was still damp, as if he had just left the hotel. Dinner tonight? I kept adjusting the lights in my model. Busy. Rachel. I looked up. He stayed outside my booth instead of walking in and touching things the way he used to. Do you know something? My fingers stopped on the control knob. About what? He studied me for a few seconds, then gave a short laugh. Forget it. You've just been really strange lately. Before he left, he put a restaurant voucher on my table. It was about the size of a hotel keycard. Sophie made a dinner reservation. 8 o'clock. Come if you want. Where's her fiancé? Evan paused. Miles is busy with work. Poor guy. He looked at me and said nothing. At 3:40 that afternoon, I was back at Harbor House. The sky outside had darkened, with a heavy gray layer of clouds sitting over the city. It had looked exactly like this the first time. I opened my laptop and forced myself to finish one last data adjustment. Sender Wusharfin. No messages. Sender Wushabafin. I checked my phone once. Siderling Senfin. Still nothing. I got up, went to the bathroom, washed my hands, and redid my ponytail even though it hadn't come loose. At 4:08, my phone started vibrating. Evan. I didn't answer. The call stopped. 10 seconds later, it rang again. Evan. I flipped the phone over. On the third call, Sophie's name appeared. I reached for it, but the call ended just as my finger touched the screen. Then, a message came through. Rachel, get to the hotel. Now. A second one followed. Miles is here. I stared at the words and felt something press against the center of my chest. The first time around, Miles hadn't found out until a month later. Why was he here today? I hadn't contacted him. All I had done was reply, okay, to Sophie the night before. The story was already moving off the track I remembered. I grabbed my coat and bag and called a car downstairs. The lobby of the Grand Meridian was much more chaotic than the day before. No police cars. Nothing dramatic or violent. Just a crowd of people near the elevators who were very obviously pretending not to stare, while the hotel manager and 2 security employees kept guests out of one corridor. The moment I walked in, a competitor passed me carrying coffee. She recognized me and slowed down for half a step. Everyone already knew. Rachel. Evan rushed out of the lounge area. The top 2 buttons of his shirt were undone. One sleeve was rolled up, the other hanging loose. He grabbed my wrist. Thank God. You need to explain it to Miles. I pulled free. Explain what? The room, Evan said under his breath. Tell him the hotel messed up. Sophie was supposed to have her own room. I looked toward the lounge. Miles sat by the window with a phone and a small jewelry box on the table in front of him. Sophie wore a long hotel robe under a coat the staff had apparently given her. Her eyes were red. Her hair was still wet. She wouldn't look at me. The hotel manager stood nearby with a professionally neutral expression. The hotel didn't mess up, I said. Evan's gaze sharpened. Rachel, you booked the room. You sent the link. Yes, I sent you a hotel link. You knew there was only a suite left. I told you there was only a suite left. Miles looked up. Evan lowered his voice even more. Do you really have to do this right now? I didn't answer. Miles stood and pushed the jewelry box an inch towards Sophie. I only want one thing, answered. He turned his phone around. A short hallway video was paused on the screen. When I got to the 4th floor, the front desk wouldn't let me walk up to the room because I wasn't registered. I insisted they call first. Sophie stared at the table. The phone rang 3 times. Nobody answered. Then Evan came out. Miles looked at him. I asked where Sophie was. You told me she went downstairs to buy something. Evan said nothing. Miles tapped the video. The door to room 417 was not fully closed. In the clip, Evan was still saying, "She isn't here," when Sophie's voice came from deeper inside the room. Evan, where did you put my dress? The video lasted 7 seconds. Someone in the lobby audibly sucked in a breath. Sophie's shoulders collapsed. Miles turned off the screen. Now tell me. She finally looked up. Miles, when I knocked on that door, why did Evan come out of 417? Evan answered immediately, because we were talking about the competition. She had just taken a shower and... Sophie snapped her head toward him. Miles stared at Evan. You told me she had gone downstairs. The lobby was quiet enough to hear steam hiss from the coffee machine. The manager cleared his throat. Mr. Bennett, because you were not a registered guest, our policy did not allow us to send you directly to the floor. The front desk called the room first, and Mr. Carter later came downstairs. As for who else may have been in the room, we're not authorized to disclose private guest information. Miles looked back at Sophie. Then I called you. Tears slipped down her face. I didn't hear it. Your phone was beside the bed. The color drained from her face. Evan stepped in front of her. Enough. This is between us. We don't need to do this in the middle of a hotel lobby. Between us? I said. He turned. Miles looked at me too. I hadn't planned to say it. The words simply came out. Evan swallowed. Rachel, that's not what I meant. Sophie suddenly burst out. We didn't plan for today to happen like this. No one spoke. She realized what she had said and covered her mouth. I looked at her. Today? Evan's expression changed. Sophie, stop talking. She jerked away from him. You stop talking. You said everything would be handled after the competition. You said if Rachel didn't win, nobody would keep looking at that project. You said, Sophie. Evan's voice finally cracked through the lobby. Every head turned. I stayed still. Miles slowly closed the jewelry box. What project? Tears still clung to Sophie's chin. Evan stared at me, breathing hard. I adjusted the strap of my bag on my shoulder. I'd like to know too. He stepped toward me. Rachel, let's go outside. No. Here is fine. Listen to me. Are you explaining why the two of you were sharing a suite? Or are you explaining my design? His mouth tightened. Sophie shook her head rapidly. I never touched your final competition files. I swear. I only helped him take one drive. He told me it was something the two of you had worked on together. A high, dull ringing filled my ears. When? She was crying so hard, she had trouble getting the words out. This summer, the day you went to campus to meet your advisor. That day, I came home to find Evan making dinner. He asked how the meeting went. He carried my laptop bag back to the office for me. I looked at him. He didn't deny it. I walked over to Sophie. Gray drive? She nodded. And a spiral notebook? She froze. That was enough. I turned toward the entrance. Evan followed. Rachel, going back and digging through everything won't help you. That version can't prove anything anymore. I stopped. Every sound in the lobby seemed to move farther away. I turned around. I never said I was trying to prove anything. His face slowly went rigid. He knew too much. I pulled out my phone and opened the competition portal in front of him. The page loaded. A new alert appeared. PROJECTSIMILARITYREVIEW. According to the system, before I officially submitted my competition project, a highly similar design had already been archived by one of the competition's partner architecture firms as part of a recruiting portfolio. Submitted by Evan Carter. Submitted 19 days before mine. I held the phone out toward the hotel manager just to make sure I wasn't misreading it. Sophie saw the screen too. For 1 second, she stopped crying. Evan, she said quietly, you told me you were just showing it to a friend. He closed his eyes. Miles stood, put the jewelry box into his pocket, and picked up his coat. You can all explain it to each other. Sophie caught his sleeve. Miles, please don't go. He looked down at her hand. Her fingers slowly opened. Miles walked out without slamming a door or calling anyone names. Somehow that made the lobby even quieter. Evan suddenly came toward me. Rachel, don't send that to the judges. I put my phone away. Why? Because we still have a chance to work this out ourselves. Who is we? His face went pale. 19 days. His submission was 19 days earlier than mine. At 1:27 in the morning, I was sitting on the floor of my room at Harbor House with 2 years of records spread around me. The desk lamp was the only light on. Papers ran from the edge of the bed, almost all the way to the door. I typed my computer password wrong twice. The third time, I got in. The competition had not automatically disqualified me. They gave me until the formal judging the next afternoon to provide evidence showing the project's development history and original authorship. The problem was that Evan had used one of my early drafts in his recruiting portfolio. That version still included several structures I had later removed. To anyone who didn't understand the development process, the two projects could look collaborative. Worse, because he had submitted first, it might look as if I had followed him. I found an email from 2 years ago. Corrupted attachment. The next one. No model photos. Another. Nothing but one sentence from my advisor. We'll keep working through version 3 on Friday. I pressed my fingers to my forehead and came away with printer ink on my skin. 3 knocks sounded at the door. I didn't move. A 4th knock. Collins? It's me. Logan. When I opened the door, he was holding 2 coffees and a paper bag. How do you know where I'm staying? You posted a walking route to the venue in the competitor group chat. This hotel was the starting point. He looked past me. Paper, everywhere. Looks like civilization really did end. I stepped aside and let him in. Logan put the coffee by the window and didn't touch a single document. I heard about the similarity review. News travels fast. Your ex-boyfriend gave half the competition a free live show in the hotel lobby. I didn't smile. He crouched beside a few of the sketches. When did you first start this project? After my sophomore year internship. Any physical pieces left? The first model was dismantled years ago. Photos? Maybe on an old hard drive. Where? I looked at him. The apartment. 2 seconds of silence. Logan stood up. I'll drive. No. You're planning to go alone at 2 in the morning and ask the ex who just got caught lying to hand over a hard drive? I'm planning to call the building first. He nodded. I called the front desk of our apartment building and requested supervised entry to retrieve work materials. My name was still on the lease, so the request was approved quickly. 40 minutes later, Logan and I stood outside the apartment. Evan wasn't there. The living room was messier than it had been the morning I woke up. A jacket was thrown over the couch. Half a bottle of water sat on the dining table. Beside the kitchen trash can was fruit I had bought before I left. I went into the office. The drawers had been searched. The old hard drive was gone. Logan stood in the doorway. He knew you'd come back. I crouched and opened the lowest cabinet. The corner of a gray spiral notebook was sticking out. It wasn't the one I had been looking for. It was older. The cover read, FLOODHOUSING VERSION 0. I opened to the first page. My handwritten calculations filled it. Material costs. Failed mechanisms. Notes on every broken component. There was even a coffee-stained photo tucked inside. It showed the ugly first model I had ever built. A date was printed in the corner. 2 years ago. I pressed my finger over the numbers. Logan crouched beside me. That helps. Not enough. Why not? He can still say we discussed it together. I kept flipping. Near the back was an old appointment card from my advisor's office. On the reverse side, I had written a course cloud file number. I photographed it and sent it to my advisor immediately. At 3:06 a.m., she actually replied. I still have the student process archive from that semester. I'll send it in the morning. I read the message twice. For the first time all night, my shoulders dropped a little. Logan drove us back to the hotel. I sat in the passenger seat with the window cracked open. Why are you helping me? I asked. I hate people who steal other people's work. That's it? Don't get emotional. I turned toward him. He kept his eyes on the red light ahead. Last year, you told 3 professors that my cost estimate looked like I had made it up based on vibes. I remember things. Because it did. So, I'm not helping you because I like you. I leaned back. Relax. I'm not that full of myself. The light changed. The corner of his mouth moved. At 7:30 the next morning, after less than 3 hours of sleep, Evan showed up. He didn't knock. He left a coffee and a paper bag outside my door and texted me. Evan, your usual. Don't skip breakfast. When I opened the door, he hadn't reached the elevator yet. Evan. He stopped. He looked years older than he had the day before. Dark circles under his eyes. Same shirt as yesterday. Did you take the old hard drive? He didn't answer right away. Rachel, can we not destroy everything between us before we've even talked? Answer me. I was trying to protect myself. I opened the door all the way. You used my design in your job applications. What exactly were you protecting yourself from? He walked back toward me, keeping his voice low. That project wasn't only yours. How many times did I listen to you talk through it over 4 years? I gave you feedback. I found research for you. Why did version 2 of the drainage system fail? He stopped. What? You said it was our project. I looked straight at him. So tell me why I threw out version 2. Does that really matter? What material did it use? His jaw tightened. Rachel, which part of the calculation was wrong? The elevator doors opened behind him, then closed again. Evan didn't answer. I nodded once. Take the coffee with you. He stared at me. You never used to talk to me like this. My hand was still on the door. You never used to take my work. I didn't steal anything. Then say that in front of the judges. His face changed. The click of high heels came from the other end of the hall. Sophie was walking fast toward us in sunglasses. The second she saw Evan, she threw a folder against his chest. You told me you made that project together. pages scattered across the carpet. Printouts from Evan's recruiting portfolio. He grabbed her arm, then released it almost immediately. "What are you doing here?" "Telling Rachel the truth." "What truth do you think you know?" "I know you told me to take her hard drive. I know you copied the files. I know you said once she lost the competition, you'd break up with her. And then..." Her voice failed. Evan's face had gone completely hard. I bent down and picked up one of the portfolio pages. The final page showed the project workflow. One line read, "Original field study completed by EC. EC Evan Carter." I had done that field study alone. I spent 6 hours walking through standing water after a major storm. I wore through the soles of my shoes and came home sick for 2 days. Evan had been out of state at a friend's wedding. I folded the page and put it inside my own document pouch. Evan reached for it. "Give me that." I stepped back. Sophie moved between us. "Don't touch her." He stared at her in disbelief. She took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were badly swollen. Miles called off the wedding. "Everyone in my work group is talking about what happened at the hotel. And last night you were still telling me this would all go away if Rachel kept quiet. So, now you're selling me out. I'm not taking the blame for stealing her design. You took the drive. Because you told me to." Their voices kept rising. The door to the room next door opened an inch. I gathered the scattered pages, put them into my folder, and closed my own door. The door muffled their argument. A few minutes later, the hallway went quiet. I looked through the peephole. Sophie was sitting alone on the carpet with papers in her lap. Evan was gone. She took out her phone and made a call. "Miles." "It's me." I couldn't hear his reply. She covered her face with one hand. "I know. I just wanted to say I'm sorry." The call ended quickly. She sat there for another half-minute, then slowly collected the papers. Before she left, she looked toward my door. I didn't open it. At 9/11, my advisor sent the process archive from 2 years earlier. 27 model photos, 11 revision records, 3 classroom critique videos. Every single file had a date. I uploaded the full package to the competition committee. Then another email appeared. The judging panel had accepted my evidence. Evan, however, had filed a formal objection. His claim was simple. We had been co-creators. Both of us would have to address the authorship dispute during the formal judging. At 1 that afternoon, the judging hall was packed. I stood beside my model, making one final adjustment to the lighting. My palms were slick with sweat. I wiped them. They immediately started sweating again. From the booth next to mine, Logan held out a pack of tissues. I took one. "Thanks. You've thanked me 4 times already." "Then I take this one back." "That sounds more like you." When the announcement called my number, the conversations in the room dropped in volume. Evan sat off to one side of the judging area with his portfolio and laptop in front of him. He had changed into a clean suit and fixed his hair. If you looked only at him, he was still the same man who had always been the strongest presenter in our program. I used to love watching him talk in front of a room. He never stumbled over his words. When the questions began, one judge opened the dispute materials. "Rachel, we need to address the authorship issue first." I nodded. 2 drawings appeared side by side on the screen. On the left was the version Evan had submitted to the architecture firm 19 days before mine. On the right was my competition submission. The water management framework was similar. So was the basic modular layout. Someone in the audience drew in a quiet breath. The judge looked at Evan. "Mr. Carter, you may go first." Evan stood. The concept developed through years of discussion while Rachel and I were living and working together. We were in a relationship for 4 years, and we often worked in the same space. I fully acknowledged that she did most of the physical modeling, but the core concept was not created by her alone. His voice was steady. Worse, almost nothing, he said, was obviously false. We had discussed the project. He had listened to me talk about it for countless hours. The judge turned to me. Ms. Collins? I didn't answer immediately. Seeing those old drawings on the screen made my stomach tighten. I knew them better than anything I had ever made, and yet for the first time, they had been arranged to look like someone else's work. I picked up the oldest spiral notebook. I'd like to start with the process. I opened to the first page. 2 years ago, version 1 used a rotating drainage node. It failed 6 times. I put an old photo on the screen. The third failure was a seized bearing. The fourth was backflow under pressure. On the 6th attempt, the base panel cracked. That's why I abandoned this mechanism. One judge looked up. Mr. Carter's submitted version still uses the rotating node. Yes. I moved to the next slide. Because he took an old version. Evan stood. That doesn't prove. The judge raised a hand and told him to sit down. I continued. These are archived files from my course platform 2 years ago. These are my advisor's comments. These are the timestamps for each material change and structural revision. Dates filled the screen in chronological order. Someone in the back whispered, "Wow." I didn't turn around. The judge asked, "How do you respond to Mr. Carter's claim that he contributed to the project?" "I can let him explain his contribution." I turned toward Evan. Why was version 2 rejected? His jaw tightened. I already said there were structural problems. Which structure? The drainage system. What material did we use? Silence. I placed a piece of gray composite board on the table. This is the material used in version 2. What's it called? Evan stared at it. He didn't know. The judges exchanged glances. I opened another file. These are the original check-in records and photos from my field study. In Mr. Carter's portfolio, he states that the original field research was conducted by him. Evan answered immediately. That was a formatting error. On 6 separate pages? He stopped talking. The side door of the judging hall opened. Sophie walked in. No makeup. Gray hard drive in her hand. Evan shot to his feet. "Sophie, get out." She ignored him and walked directly to a staff member. "This belongs to Rachel. I took it out of Evan's luggage last night." A wave of low conversation moved through the room. The staff member accepted the drive. Evan's face went white. "You went through my luggage?" Sophie gave a short laugh, but her eyes were red. "Now you know what it feels like when someone takes something that belongs to you." I looked at her. She didn't look back. The drive was logged and handed to a technical staff member. No one opened it in the room. The judges asked for quiet. Evan turned on me. "Are you happy now?" I didn't answer. "You dragged everyone into this just to win a competition?" The presentation remote was slick in my hand. "I didn't ask you to submit my design. You've always thought you were better than me." There it was. The whole room went silent again. Evan gave a bitter laugh. 4 years. Every time people met us, it was Rachel's project, Rachel's award, Rachel's next opportunity. "Do you have any idea what it's like standing next to you?" I looked at him. "So, you took my work?" "I wanted one chance not to be the person standing behind you." I set the remote down. "Then you should have made something of your own." His mouth trembled. The panel ended the argument. They announced that the authorship evidence would go through final verification and that my project review would continue. For the next 20 minutes, I didn't look at Evan again. They asked about cost. I answered. They asked about maintenance during extreme weather. I removed the base of my model and showed them the concealed drainage layer. They asked why residents wouldn't be burdened by a system that looked complicated on paper. I put version 3 and version 5 test data side by side on the screen. The final judge leaned back in her chair. "Why did you stay with this project?" My fingers were still resting against the edge of the model. Rain had started outside. Fine drops tapped against the glass. I looked over for a second. "There are plenty of beautiful buildings," I said. "But when the rain actually comes, people need a home that works." There was no applause. No dramatic music. The judge simply looked down and wrote several lines on her score sheet. Thank you, Miss Collins. The panel was about to close the file when the woman on the far left looked up again. One last question. Your budget gets cut by 15%. What goes first? I stepped back into position. The decorative reflecting pool. She raised an eyebrow. Not the solar system? No. The pool is attractive, but it doesn't keep residents functioning through an outage and a major storm. The green roof? Reduce the footprint. Don't remove it. The community space? Keep it. After a disaster, people need more than a dry box to sleep in. She watched me for a few seconds, then finally closed the folder. This time, a few people in the back actually applauded before the room settled again. When I stepped off the platform, my knees suddenly felt weak. Logan caught my elbow from the side. Just once. You good? Yes. I'm letting go. Go ahead. He did. I nearly caught my shoe on the edge of the carpet. Logan grabbed my arm again. I glared at him. He finally laughed. Very convincing. I started laughing too, then stopped halfway through. Another competitor, someone I only recognized from registration, approached with her phone in her hand. I recorded part of the hotel lobby yesterday. Honestly, I was going to send it to a friend because the whole thing was wild. But then I realized Evan says something in the background. The video was noisy. Evan had his back to the camera and was speaking quietly to Sophie. As long as she doesn't pass the authorship review tomorrow, everything after that is easy to explain. I forwarded the clip to myself and handed the phone back. Thank you. She looked embarrassed. Sorry. I really was just being nosy yesterday. You still can be. She blinked, then laughed. I laughed with her. Evan was standing at the far end of the hallway. The crowd had cleared around him. No one seemed interested in standing nearby. He waited until I approached. Rachel. I stopped. He glanced back at the judging hall behind me. If I hadn't done any of this, would we have stayed together? I still had the sweat-wrinkled tissue in my hand. 4 years suddenly compressed into one short hallway. Soup at 2 a.m. The blanket he kept in the car every winter. The nights he sat on the floor cutting model pieces while I worked. And the 4th floor hotel window with the curtains open. I opened my mouth. The announcement system spoke first. All finalists, please report to the main stage. In the distance, Logan lifted his competitor badge toward me. Evan was still waiting. I dropped the crumpled tissue into a trash can. I don't know, I said. He stared at me. It was the only honest answer I had. If he hadn't taken my work, if he hadn't betrayed me, if we had made it through that weekend in some other life, maybe we would have married. Maybe a completely different crack would have broken us later. I had already died once. That still didn't give me the right to invent the ending of a life that never happened. Evan's mouth shifted, as if he wanted to smile and couldn't. At least you didn't say you never loved me. I said nothing. The announcement called the finalists again. I turned and headed for the main stage. Backstage was freezing. A dozen finalists stood in a line. One person kept rehearsing an acceptance speech. Another stared at his phone. Someone else pretended not to care while repeatedly asking the staff how many awards there were. Logan stood beside me, holding an unopened bottle of water. You're not nervous? I asked. I am. Doesn't look like it. I'm good at pretending. I looked at him. Finally found your area of expertise. He handed me the bottle. Nice to see you recovering. I took a drink. Applause sounded from the other side of the curtain. The staff started announcing names. 3rd place wasn't me. 2nd place wasn't me either. My fingers slowly dented the plastic bottle. Logan lowered his voice. Try not to kill the water too. I loosened my grip. The host opened the final card. And the grand prize for this year's National Emerging Design Challenge goes to Rachel Collins. I didn't move immediately. Logan tapped my arm with the back of his hand. Collins. Then I walked forward. The stage lights were blinding. I couldn't make out individual faces in the audience, only a wide field of people rising to their feet. My hands were still trembling when I took the award. Not with the cold numbness I remembered from the night I died. Not with the uncontrollable shaking from the morning I woke up again. Just nerves. The trophy was heavier than I expected. I switched it to my other hand. The host asked if I wanted to say anything. I looked out at the room. The judges were in the front row. Near the exit, Sophie stood outside the seating area. When she saw me look over, she paused, then lowered her head and walked away. Miles wasn't there. Neither was Evan. Logan stood off to one side backstage with his arms folded. "Thank you to my advisor and the judging panel," I said. "And thank you to everyone who asked hard enough questions to make the project better." A few people laughed. I didn't say anything else. When the applause rose again, I suddenly thought about where I had been at this exact time in my first life. I should have already been gone. My laptop had been ruined in a hotel room. My hard drive was missing. My model never made it onto this stage. Now it filled the main screen behind me. When I came down the steps, a staff member handed me a project incubation grant package. It wasn't some overnight fortune. Just enough funding to keep developing the design, plus interview invitations from several architecture firms. That was more than enough. I held the paperwork against my chest. Sophie was waiting near the backstage exit. She looked like she had been there for a while. "Rachel." I stopped. Her hands were empty. Her engagement ring was gone. "I'm going to give the review committee a written statement about the hard drive. Everything I know." "Okay. I'm not asking you to forgive me." I looked at her. She sniffed once. I kept telling myself that as long as Evan didn't actually leave you, what I was doing wasn't that bad. I even blamed you for trusting him too much. Like that was the reason I got close enough. At the end, she gave a small, humorless laugh. "That sounds awful, doesn't it?" "Yes." She nodded. I didn't comfort her. She didn't cry again. "Congratulations," she said. Then she walked past me. It was quieter than every confrontation I had imagined having with her. And somehow, that made my hands feel warmer than the trophy did. The backstage area had barely cleared when another group of judges called Logan over. Before he left, he pointed at the award in my hands. "Now you can't say I've never lost. You're admitting it?" "Temporarily." "How generous. I'll take it back next time." Then he walked away. No hug. No excuse to stand closer than he needed to. I watched him go and felt the corner of my mouth lift. My phone vibrated in my bag. The first notification was from the competition committee. The dispute over Evan's submitted work would be referred to the appropriate partner institutions for review. The judging panel would no longer consider objections filed by him under a claim of co-authorship. I archived the email. Then Evan's message appeared. "Congratulations." A long time passed before a second one came. "I really did love you." I stood by the backstage exit and read both messages. I didn't reply. That night, when I went back to the hotel to pack, I found an old photo tucked inside my coat. It was from a beach trip 2 years earlier. Evan stood behind me with an arm over my shoulders. I was smiling so hard my eyes had almost disappeared, and the wind had blown my hair everywhere. The person in that photo wasn't being lied to. At least, not in that exact moment. I sat on the edge of the bed for a while. A couple who had just checked in walked past my room. The woman laughed about how heavy the suitcase was. The man said, "You packed 3 pairs of shoes you're never going to wear." They laughed all the way to the elevator. I looked down at the picture. I used to be afraid to admit when a relationship was over, because once I did, it felt as if every good day inside it became embarrassing too. But the ocean wind in that picture had been real. My smile had been real. What happened later didn't get to travel backward and erase that afternoon. I put the photo in the trash. I didn't tear it up. I didn't burn it. I just let it go. The next morning, I rolled my suitcase into the lobby. The front desk clerk handed me the bill. "Miss Collins, I hope you enjoyed your stay." I took the paper. Better than the last one. She didn't understand, of course. She just smiled and wished me a safe trip. Sunlight flooded the sidewalk outside the revolving doors. I had barely reached the curb when a car pulled up. The window rolled down. Logan was behind the wheel. Airport? I thought your flight was this afternoon. Changed it. Why? My mother says if I miss one more family lunch, she's kicking me out of the group chat. I opened the back door. Logan looked at me. I'm not your driver. There's yesterday's coffee cup on the passenger seat. He looked down. There was, in fact, an empty coffee cup there. He picked it up and threw it into a paper bag in the back. Now, I got into the passenger seat. Barely acceptable. We pulled away. At the intersection near the Grand Meridian, I saw Evan standing on the sidewalk. He saw me too. The red light lasted 30 seconds. He took one step forward. I didn't roll down the window. He stayed where he was, then finally lifted one hand. The light changed. Logan accelerated. The hotel, the intersection, and Evan disappeared behind us. I opened my email. A new message from the competition committee was at the top. The authorship verification had officially closed. My project ownership was confirmed with no dispute. Evan's recruiting submission would be handled independently by the institutions involved. I marked the email as read. Logan glanced over. Finished? I put my phone back in my bag. Yeah. How do you feel? The entrance to the freeway ahead was washed in white morning light. I thought about it. Hungry. Logan nodded. That I can fix. Don't say airport sandwich. You have a lot of demands. I just won the national competition. How long are you planning to use that? At least until tonight. He laughed and signaled toward the exit. 10 minutes later, we pulled up outside an ordinary breakfast place. The moment I opened the door, the smell of hot coffee and toast hit me. Logan sat across from me and flipped the menu over. What are you doing next? Going home and sleeping for 2 days. Ambitious. Then interviews. I pulled the grant paperwork from my bag and set it on the corner of the table. 3 firms had sent invitations the night before, including one that specialized in urban disaster resilience projects. Logan glanced at it. That one's good. You applying too? Maybe. Then you should recalculate your cost estimates. He looked up. You win one award and immediately start trash-talking the next round? Keeping sharp. The server set 2 coffees on the table. Logan pushed the sugar toward me. I pushed it back. I drink it black. I know. My hand paused. Logan was already looking down at the menu again, as if those 2 words meant nothing. I lifted the mug and took a sip. Too hot. This time, no one had ordered for me in advance. No one had reminded me that my hands shook when I skipped breakfast. I ordered eggs, toast, and fruit for myself. My phone stayed quiet. I didn't check it again. 3 days earlier, I had woken up after my own death, believing a second life meant I had been sent back to settle a score. Now Logan slid the menu toward me, and I opened to the first page. Before revenge, before love, before anything else, I ordered breakfast. This time, I chose myself first. Tell me, darlings, have you ever met a man so desperate to escape a woman's shadow that he tries to steal her son? That was our dear Evan, truly believing that stealing a queen's crown would magically make him a king, completely forgetting that a thief will always flinch when the spotlight hits. And sweet, fragile Sophie. Have you ever noticed how the women who play the most pathetic victims are usually the ones holding the knife? We see this dynamic play out in real life all the time, don't we? The partner who quietly takes credit for your ideas, or the anxious old friend who always needs just a little too much comforting from your man. We fall into the trap of being the reliable one. We book the hotels, we fix the problems, we manage their emotions, and we hand over the passwords to our lives, both literally and metaphorically, because we convince ourselves that overfunctioning is a love language. But how do we avoid waking up one day to find our lives hijacked by these emotional vampires? It's simple. Stop being the unpaid manager of a mediocre man's life. Stop fixing what they break. Let them book their own flights. Let them face their own failures, and watch closely how they treat you when you stop making their lives perfectly convenient. If a relationship falls apart, the second you stop carrying the entire weight of it, it wasn't a partnership, it was a parasite. Why do we so often shrink our own brilliance just to make a small man feel tall? Ladies, if your light blinds him, don't you dare dim it. Leave him in the dark where he belongs. Your talent, your heart, and your life's work are not charity centers for insecure boys. The girl in our story has already taken back everything that was hers. Tell me, sitting in front of this screen, are you ready to rewrite your own script? I am Nova, wishing you sweet dreams tonight, and tomorrow, a phoenix rising from the ashes.